Welcome to this episode of Be Your Greatest Asset podcast, the wellbeing series for mums in business and working mums who want to feel inspired to prioritize your own well-being. And I'm delighted to be hosting this podcast to give amazing women like Kathryn here the opportunity to showcase your wisdom and gifts with the world and to inspire other women and to show you that well-being can be easy. It gets to be easy. So, as I said, I'm with Kathryn today. Kathryn is from Anchor Mindfulness and Meditation. And today we're going to be talking about mindfulness and meditation your way. And my alarm's just gone off. There we go. There's something else. Just dealing with the challenges, riding with it. So, Kathryn, would you like to introduce yourself in more detail, please?
Yeah, sure. And thank you very much for having me. So my name's Kathryn. I'm the founder of Anchor Mindfulness and Meditation, which is a relatively new venture for me, something I set up maybe 6 months ago now, but I've been thinking about it for a lot longer. It just has taken a little while for me to kind of get it up and running and fall into place. My day job, I work in a very large corporate organisation, so this is an extra thing that I've started to do. Which is a real passion of mine. So it's lovely to be able to have that balance and actually be doing something for me that I can give back to other people as well as the day job. I've got a daughter and she's one of my inspirations for wanting to, I guess, live a more mindful life, but also share mindfulness with as many people as possible. And we live down in Dorset with my husband and a cat. So I'm a big cat fan, a big nature fan. So yeah, that's me really.
Amazing. Cats and nature, girl after my own heart.
Yes.
Great. So that's really interesting that you are already you're in a job already. How many hours do you work a week, employed?
So I'm full-time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you find the energy and the time to actually juggle both a full-time job, a daughter and a husband and cats,
Yeah.
plus your part-time business?
Yes. I mean, sometimes I do wonder how I kind of manage to do things all at once. I'm very lucky. My husband's very supportive, and so are my parents. They're close by, and my daughter spends a lot of time with them, which she loves. So that's a massive help. But I think from what I do personally is I'm very organised. I'm a real planner, which does have its downfalls at times, but it can also be very helpful because I do seem to be able to fit a lot in. And I just try and kind of have a plan and keep to that plan, I guess, which can be quite rigid, but for me it works, and I think that's how I manage to fit it in. But I go to bed very early, so I'm often very tired. So early nights is a big one for me as well.
Love that. So you say you're a planner, which is interesting. So that kind of goes against the grain really of mindfulness. So do you find that mindfulness helps you when things don't go to plan? Because I know in life things don't always go to plan.
Yeah.
There's always unexpected challenges that we have to deal with as mums.
Yeah.
How do you cope with the unexpected?
I think mindfulness definitely does help, but I completely still will have those meltdowns. If something doesn't go to plan, I still get that feeling in the pit of my stomach sometimes, and I get panicked depending on the severity of kind of what's gone wrong. So it certainly hasn't stopped those feelings when things don't go according to my plan, but it definitely has given me headspace, I think, to be able to just take a moment and go, oh, it's okay, it's fine, it's just a different plan, it will be okay. And it's also taught me not to overcommit to things. That's been a big learn for me over the past couple of years.
Yeah, I second that, definitely. Not overcommitting. I specifically put in my diary, keep free and limit how many plans I make, because I was just finding that life was just too hectic.
Yeah.
And I love that you've said hands up, I still have my meltdowns. I think, we all have our meltdowns, don't we? But then it's a case really of how we process those meltdowns and how we navigate them, because we all have emotions all the time. Like I've had some big meltdowns recently as well, but I think the more you practice mindfulness, hopefully you agree with me here, but for me, the more you practice mindfulness, the easier it is to process, and the quicker you sort of bounce back. I find.
Yeah. And I found then the impact on those around me when I do have those meltdowns, or I mean, if my meltdown tends to be more, I get cross rather than get upset, for example. So I can end up just kind of being mean to people. So I've noticed that the mindfulness definitely helps, I guess, eliminate that for those around me, because I just seem to be able to, like I said, deal with what happens more effectively rather than just react.
Yeah.
So that's been a big positive, especially for my daughter. It's very easy to get frustrated with children, as a lot of people will know. So the mindfulness definitely with how I interact with her, when actually I know that it's my issue that's causing my feelings, it's nothing to do with her, but how I react to her is definitely much more positive when I'm in a more mindful place.
Yeah, I find that as well. It is easy to get frustrated, and like I know that when I'm feeling more stressed or anxious about something or worried about something, I do become more snappy with my children. And to be honest, I've noticed that more again recently because I'm solo parenting on my own and everything's different now. We're living in Scotland, and like we've got no routine. It just feels like the schools are being constantly closed with strikes, 2 weeks of school holidays, and then the storm.
Yeah.
And it's just been really challenging. And so if I have snapped with them, I've then reflected on it later and I've said, okay, this is this is how I'm feeling, and this is why I reacted like this, and I'm sorry. Basically, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I shouldn't talk to you like that or whatever, but it does happen, and I want every mum to realize that we do.
Yeah.
When we do our best, you do your best at all times, and that's all you can do is your
Yeah.
best.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Reflection is a very key thing, I think, in it all. Um,
Yes.
so you told me that you, through mindfulness, you've challenged the expectations and rules of these beautiful practices. So how exactly have you challenged them?
So I think for me, my mindfulness meditation journey started probably about 12 years ago now. It came as I started practicing yoga, because it was always sort of a tag on to the end of classes, and just, you just learn about it as part of the kind of package. And I remember the type of yoga that I was doing and that I still do, but back then it was very, very structured. Ashtanga yoga, for those yogis that are watching and know what that is, very structured, very rigid, very rigid. And that then filtered through to how I guess I expected myself to be able to meditate or be mindful. So I kind of viewed meditation as something that had to be a lengthy process. It had to be first thing in the morning, on an empty stomach, with no noise around me, sat in a certain position, not moving. And if I couldn't think about anything else, had to be completely focused. And it just never worked for me. And I used to do it, but I used to hate it, and I used to feel miserable afterwards because I used to feel like I'd failed at it, which looking back now is just the most ridiculous thing. And when I look back on how I felt about it at the time, it was clearly completely the opposite of everything that it was trying to achieve.
Yeah.
But this lasted for years, and I battled and battled with it and could just never get this kind of sense that I'd ever be enlightened or good enough as a kind of meditation or mindfulness practitioner. And it kind of went off the cards for me for a little bit. And then about 18 months ago now, I had COVID and was subsequently diagnosed with long COVID. And so I was ill for a little bit of time. And as a result of some healthcare that I've had going on for the long COVID, I'm also going through assessment for neurodiversity. And as part of that process, I now completely understand why I find those boundaries of mindfulness and meditation, the traditional boundaries, so restrictive. So I think the main example for me is I cannot meditate first thing in the morning. It just doesn't work. I need to get up and I need to move. And for years I was like, but that's not what it says I should be doing. I should be still. I should be finding this stillness. So now the mornings for me, I get up, I do something active, whether that's like a weight session, I'll go for a walk, go for a run. But I cannot sit and practice mindfulness first thing in the morning. And that's not saying it's wrong. I know lots of people that do have a very beautiful morning mindfulness practice, and I'm kind of envious of that in a way, because it sounds like such a nice way to start your day. But for me, it just doesn't work. And it doesn't work sitting in one position every time and doing the same thing every time. And it took me years and years to learn that about myself. And it's really only in the last probably 12 months that I've gone, okay, I don't actually have to do it this way. There's lots of other ways that I can be mindful and that I can do meditation that don't involve sitting in lotus position for hours on end, completely still with no noise. Because also no noise for me is very difficult when I've got a daughter, a cat, you know, live in a busy house. It's just, and I was putting all these boundaries and pressures on myself, which was completely defeating the object of what the practice should be achieving. So that was then my inspiration for starting to want to, I guess, show people that you can make your practice your way and you can do it however you like, and no one's actually watching you anyway, so no one even knows what you're doing. That was another big thing for me. Who's going to know if I change position or open my eyes? No one's going to even know.
That's it. And even in that Ashtanga class, probably no one would know either.
No, exactly.
That's brilliant. That's thank you so much for bringing that through, because I think that will resonate with so many of our listeners. It's something that comes through with my clients regularly. That like, how can I sit in silence? How can I sit in stillness? How can I just be when I've got my to-do list whizzing through my head, and I've got my child around, and you know, the dog and the cat and the this and the that, and it's really hard. And yeah, I think that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And you've had quite a journey.
Yeah.
And
I think the other thing to add on to that is just like the consistency piece as well. For me, it doesn't work doing it at the same time every day. So it doesn't work doing it in the mornings. But I know that, you know, again, traditionally it's taught that ideally you do it at a set time of day. And I understand the reasoning behind that. And for a lot of people that works. But again, for me, whether that's lifestyle, health conditions, whatever, that it just doesn't fit with me. So my practice is massively sporadic. It's kind of just as and when. But it works for me, and I finally on a bit of a path where I can go, okay, it's actually being a benefit now rather than you know, something that made me feel awful.
Well, when you look at life is up and down anyway, isn't it? And although an element of routine is fantastic, and right now I'm going to be honest, I'm craving routine in my life because everything's been completely thrown up in the air. So I'm really pulling on my mindfulness resources right now to help me breathe through it. But that said, it doesn't have to be at a certain time, does it at all? It can be, it's as long as you're aware of the intention behind it. I mean, again, I know lots of people, lots of my clients, friends, they can't meditate first thing in the morning. You know, you see all this thing about morning rituals, you must do your morning rituals, this, that, and the other. But it doesn't work for everybody. And life is up and down, and you might just get like, I don't know, say the postman knocks on the door during, you know, while you're just about to sit down and do your practice or whatever, or you're just about to sit down and have a mindful cup of tea or something, or, you know, a child is off school sick, or they come home from school really tired and grumpy, for example. And it's just finding peace in the moment, isn't it? It's I know you're very keen on finding mindfulness in the moments as well.
And I think, I know at the beginning I said I'm a real planner, which I am, and I would say that I plan every part of my life apart from mindfulness, if that makes sense. So I've got I know what I'm going to do every day. I plan my workouts, I plan if I'm going to go for a run in advance, but I never plan mindfulness in, because I know that I will do it when I need it, because I'll know that I'll need it, if that makes sense.
Perfect sense.
And I also know that if I go, right, at 10 o'clock, I need 10 minutes to do a body scan, for example, and then, like you said, the postman knocks on the door or something happens out of my control, then I'll be like, oh, it's ruined. It's ruined. Someone's interrupted me. It's ruined. And then I'll be back in that negative space about it. So I never plan mindfulness in. I do it when I do it most days, but I do it when I feel I need it. And every day looks completely different. And I'll go through phases where I'll be doing one particular thing. I'm really into yoga nidra at the moment, and I'm doing some online classes each week. And so that's a real focus of mine at the moment. So at the moment, that's kind of what I'm really into. But other times it might be, are we really into doing like gratitude lists or mindfulness outside if the weather's really beautiful, for example. So I definitely go in phases, I think, with my mindfulness, depending on what I feel my body needs and my mind needs.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it, though, is that there are so many different types and ways to be mindful. There's no one size fits all. And I use the analogy of even just running the Hoover around or emptying the dishwasher. You can turn that into a mindfulness exercise.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily have to sit down and do it anyway. So that having that flow and that flexibility, and not beating yourself up if you don't do it at your set time, and you don't, you get disturbed and you have to start again later. Because again, if you get disturbed, that is probably when you do need it, because you feel a bit like, oh, flustered. But then taking that breather and then sort of dropping back into it, or doing something else mindful. What examples have you got of your mindfulness your way?
So I think, well, big thing for me was I noticed that I'm always doing something. So even if I'm doing something, I'm always doing something else alongside it. So I was thinking about this morning, and it highlighted it exactly what I'm about to say. Was I noticed that every time I clean my teeth, I'm running around doing something else. I'm running around the house, taking glasses to the kitchen or picking stuff up, putting a wash on while I'm cleaning my teeth, which is just ridiculous because it takes 3 minutes to clean your teeth. Like I should be able to spare that time just to stand in the bathroom. And so a little while ago, I was like, right, every time I brush my teeth, I'm not going to leave the bathroom. And I found it so hard, which just seems ridiculous. And then I've obviously got back out of the habit because this morning I was thinking about what we were going to talk about tonight. And as I'm brushing my teeth, I'm walking around, I've got my makeup bag under my arm and I'm collecting glasses from upstairs. And I just thought, yeah, this is, I'm not being mindful right now. I'm doing a million things. I just need to take a moment. So I think it's taken a while for me to learn just to notice. I think that's the first thing, is just notice when you're not being mindful.
Yeah.
So now I've got quite used to, and I can't always fix it. It doesn't mean I necessarily put all those things down and just go back to the bathroom and clean my teeth, but it's noticing when I'm not being mindful. And that's around everything. So things like daily activities, but also like my food. So things I'm eating, and my lifestyle. Just if I'm not being mindful, I feel like things are just getting a bit out of control. So that's the first thing I would say, is it's learning just to notice when you're not being mindful.
Absolutely.
And then you can find ways to fix it.
Yeah. I think awareness is the foundation, really, isn't it? Like the awareness of how you're feeling, sort of, because that's really pulling you into the present moment. And that's really what mindfulness is, isn't it? It's like it's being present. So when you're actually aware of how you're feeling, if you're feeling a bit like, oh, I'm running around all over the place here, then it's a great place to start.
And kind of not judge that as well.
Pardon?
And not judge that as well. So I didn't kind of go, oh God, I just failed at being mindful again. I was just like, no, it's okay. Right, I've noticed it. Let's just take a minute. And it's not judging yourself for not always being in the right place.
Yeah, celebrate for that awareness. Be like, oh, all right, thanks. I noticed that. Well done me. Well done me. I noticed it. Okay. So how can I break this habit of running around and cleaning my teeth and doing a million things at once? Let's start practicing again. If that's what I want to do. If you actually really enjoy running around collecting the glasses while cleaning your teeth, then fine.
Absolutely.
But if it's something that you want to change the habit, then practice.
And I'm very much into trying to get these mindful moments as my consistent practice. Not consistent at the same time, like I said, but my consistency, I guess, comes around mindful moments rather than committing to sitting down and doing like a 20-minute breathwork exercise, for example. So I will try and grab mindful moments that maybe take 2 or 3 minutes maximum, but when I really feel I need them, because I find that those make the most difference to me. So one that I really like is noticing your senses. So if I'm feeling completely not in the present moment, just take a minute, and what I like about, I'll share too, and what I like about them both is that You can do them anywhere and at any time, and also no one notices. No one knows what you're doing. You can do it if you're on a bus, stood up, walking around. So the first one that I like is noticing your senses. So just taking a moment and noticing 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can smell, 2 things you can feel, and 1 thing you can taste. And obviously, if anyone's going to practice these and any of those senses aren't available to you, you can skip them, or you can mix them up. If you feel you know in an environment that there's lots to see, you could focus more on that. But just tuning into your senses, whatever that looks like for you. And I find it really brings me back to that present moment of just being aware of what's around me and not what's in my head.
Yeah.
That's one I really like.
Noticing.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And no one knows that you're doing that. You can just stand there and do it and no one even knows.
Yeah.
But it makes quite a difference, I find.
And have you got any other examples of so when you're doing that, when you're practicing the five senses, if you're at home, for example, and your daughter's around, do you still do that exercise? And what are you doing while you're doing that exercise, or enjoying that exercise, I should say, not doing it?
I normally try, whenever I'm doing it, I try to be still, I guess, or walking sort of intentionally, if that makes sense, like on a walk, not just kind of while I'm doing jobs around the house, I guess. If Marley, my daughter's around, I'll either get her involved as well, or I'll kind of just carry on regardless of her, almost, because she's nearly 9, so she's often off playing anyway. So it's nice to get her involved if I can, but if not, I try and always stop what I'm doing, unless I'm out in nature doing something purposeful like a walk. I'll try and just stop and just stand still for a minute, because I think the idea is, for me certainly, it's what you can quickly notice for your senses. It's not about looking for things, it's just about what you can see. So like if I'm looking at you right now, I could see 5 things, and that, rather than me having to like look around the room and find things, it's very much just being in that present moment.
Yeah.
And just
landing
right there.
right? Yeah.
Landing, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's
coming home to yourself straight away.
Yeah, nice and quickly.
Yeah. Beautiful. And how often does your daughter get involved? Does she enjoy it?
She does, yeah. And she's got she likes doing like rainbow breathing and things like that she's learned from school. So yeah, it's nice to get her involved.
And do they do mindfulness in school? Do they regularly?
They seem to when she was younger. They don't seem to do it quite as much now, but yeah, when she was in the younger years, yeah, they seem to do quite a bit, which I loved.
Oh, can you share with our audience, with our listeners, what rainbow breathing is? It's beautiful.
So yeah, so it was this is what Marley taught me. So she would we would sit down and we'd always face each other, and on an inhale you would raise your arms above your head like to make an arch for a rainbow, and on the exhale you would take them back down again, which sounds quite simple, and it is very simple to do, but I found it surprisingly effective.
Yeah, and I think the more simple it is, the better, the more effective it is, because it's more sustainable. You're more likely to do it because you don't have to think about it too much. It's just, you have to breathe anyway. So why
exactly.
not? I haven't got enough room to outstretch my arms or something. But yeah, I think definitely keep it simple. That is my top tip tonight. Keep it simple.
And the other one I was going to share, which on this theme of like breath and keeping it simple, like you said, you're breathing anyway. Another thing that I like to do, which again I find great because no one notices you doing it, although actually my friends now do notice when I'm doing it because I've shared it with them. So what you do is you just kind of count your breath on each part of your finger, and you could do it in a spiral, but I like to go up each finger, so ultimately it would be 12 breaths in total because you've got 3 bits to each of your fingers. And I don't necessarily make my inhales or exhales any longer than they already are. I just kind of go with my natural breath. And by the time I've done 12, I find it's really settled me. It takes about 2 minutes, which I think is one of these, things they say is 2 minutes should kind of settle your nervous system.
Yeah.
So it seems that really works for me. And like I said, it's quite a subtle thing to do. I like the movements because it just keeps me, I like to be moving anyway, but it just keeps me with a bit of focus. But I mean, I'm doing it now and you can't see on the screen, but my friends do notice now when I do it. They're like, oh, she's just doing her 12 breaths.
I love that
because they'll see me doing this.
I taught my boys the high five breath, which is really similar. So it's breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, like that. And they enjoy doing that.
Yeah,
They
it's a
do that
similar
when,
thing, isn't it?
yeah, similar. Again, it's just it's that connection, that awareness, that focus on
Yeah.
something simple again.
Yes.
So yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's brilliant. Thanks for sharing those with us. So um yeah, so you've shared some examples of how you've integrated it easily into your life. What else do you want to share with us? What other wisdom do you want to impart?
I think just make it work for you and don't worry about what you should or shouldn't be doing, because actually what I've learned is there are no rules. I absolutely believe, yeah, there are things that help make mindfulness more accessible to people. So, for example, it's great if you can have a fairly quiet space, but it doesn't necessarily need to be in complete silence.
Yeah.
But it's nice if you can find a slightly calmer environment, because often you're trying to instill calmness in you. So if you can have calm environment, that's great. But just make it work for you. If you need to move, that's absolutely fine. You don't have to sit in one position. When I've been teaching yoga nidra recently online, I've said to people, if you need to move, firstly, I can't see you anyway, so just do what you need to do. But actually, traditionally, yoga nidra is taught completely flat on the floor. And actually, a lot of people find that really uncomfortable. So if you want to be on the sofa or on your bed, that's absolutely fine. Do what works for you, because I think you just restrict the benefits of the practice because you're so worried about what you're doing, or you're uncomfortable, or you just think you're overthinking it, which is exactly what it's trying to stop. So just my wisdom share would be just do what works for you. It doesn't matter what anyone else does.
Don't compare yourself to others,
No.
because we're all different. We've all got different needs, different postures, different
Yeah.
circumstances, and environments to do it in. And I mean, I've found through practice that, I mean, you say to move into stillness if possible, which yes, I definitely agree with that. But one of the wins for me through mindfulness is being able to tune out my children when they're really noisy. It's like, okay, I'm really going to focus on what I'm doing right now, because my kids are getting a little bit excitable or whatever, but they do have to be kids as well. So
Yeah.
I've noticed the difference between, because I've got two boys, they're 11 and 7, and they do like to rough and tumble a little bit. They're not too bad, but yeah, they do play around a bit. And I've noticed that whereas my husband might be a little bit more likely to, snap at them, I'm like, oh, just I'll often mouth him, just leave them, it's fine. They're okay, they're just having fun, they're just being kids.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously if they're not being kind to each other, then I'll intervene. But if they're literally just having a bit of a play fight there,
yeah.
so yeah. Or if, like, they're playing on the PlayStation or something, and the Minecraft's theme tune sometimes really, it winds me up. Like, just tune it out, it's okay, it's okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that element of it as well, being able to drown stuff out.
It is, yeah. And I think as well, like as a parent, or I don't know, in a workplace, for example, I think you're so focused on other people and what other people are doing. It, like you said, it is that tuning out. And I think it's remembering that it is okay to, I guess it will meet your basic needs. That's another thing that I try and say to people as well, like, have your basic needs been met before you even attempt a mindfulness practice, let alone anything else. Have you had a drink? Are you thirsty? Are you hungry? And do you need the toilet? Because if any of those three things are present, you're not going to be able to do anything effectively, let alone sit and meditate for 10 minutes.
Yeah,
And
I learned that
I
a long
think
time. Long time ago.
yeah, like
I need a wee.
I think
I'm
as a
away.
parent, or as a parent, or at work, or just, life is busy, isn't it? And I think those basic needs so often get neglected. And if those aren't met, then other stuff's not going to be as effective as it should be.
Yeah.
So it's another check-in point for me. Have my basic needs been met?
That's, yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely critical.
Yeah.
And I'm not even going to say that we're deserving of it. It, like you say, it's basic need. Just do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Make sure that you do. So amazing. Oh, I thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Please can you share with our listeners how people can connect with you, a bit more about your work, what you've got going on in the pipeline, where
Yeah,
they can
sure.
find you?
So I'm on Instagram at the moment, not on Facebook, just Instagram at the moment, Anchor Mindfulness Meditation. At the moment, I'm doing quite a lot of yoga nidra, which I touched on earlier on. So I'm doing weekly or fortnightly, just depending on kind of work schedule as well. Online sessions two times on a Wednesday, so 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock at night, which are for about 35 minutes each. So on Zoom, nice and easy, you can do it from home. And then I'm also doing some yoga nidra at a studio in Bournemouth. That's going to be a monthly thing. And in terms of the mindfulness, I've got nothing structured going on at the moment, but I am kind of in chats with people. If people want to get in touch with me, I've got people that I'm talking to about ways they can make their practice more accessible. So yeah, feel free to get in touch, and I'm happy to kind of have a chat about anything really.
Brilliant.
Cats, nature, mindfulness, anything.
Perfect. Well, I'll pop your Instagram handle in the show notes.
Thank you.
Find you. And do you have any last words of wisdom at all?
I think just going back to what we just touched on, so have your basic needs been met, and then just make mindfulness work for you. That is such a powerful and positive practice. Just make it work for you. Don't worry about what anyone else thinks. No one's even going to know.
Perfect.
Make it work for you.
It's great to reinforce that. It's brilliant. Oh, that's
Thank
wonderful.
you.
Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a real pleasure to
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Bye.